What's up, SC Nation? Ramsey here. Customer success is a relatively new team. Before I became a sales engineer, and even before I started this podcast where I had my head in the sand or in a bubble, whatever you want to call it, I didn't even know that team existed. In my world, the sales team is also the customer success team. So the team that's doing the pre-sales, who's doing the demos and all that, is also supporting the customers after the purchase, making sure that the customer implements what they're buying, is using what they're buying, and making sure that the customer is not flipping their stuff over what they just bought. Even then, the question is, why should sales engineers be part of post-sales? They can just simply use support as post-sales, which is what they're there for. In my mind, the higher-ups, the managers, directors, VPs, whatever, they do the buying. The users do the keeping. If there's something that's pissing the users off, it opens the door for competitors to come in and try to convince the management team to buy them next time instead of continuing to buy from the same company, renewing the contract or buying additional software or solutions from that same company. And when customers run into issues, generally speaking, their point of contact is the sales team. They don't know anybody from the support team, especially when there's no customer success organization. So they just reach out to the salesperson or the SE, whoever they've built a relationship with or whoever they know can actually get things done. So again, what is the role of a sales engineer in post-sales? And I give you the usual SE answer, it depends. And it depends on a few things. How bad do you want to keep your customer as your customer? You're the incumbent, they already bought from you. You don't want to open the door for somebody else. It also depends on the number of AEs or account managers, account executives that the sales engineer is supporting. If the SE is tied one-to-one with the account executive, that would likely mean that the SE has more post-sales responsibilities than someone who's tied 1-10. If you're tied 1-10 as an SE, that most likely means that you're just doing demos all day. And then we find ourselves in a spot where a customer is unhappy. And the question comes up, what is this SE supposed to do about this? Many SEs have asked me this question, especially new SEs who don't really have a lot of guidance from their management team. They're in pre-sales, they're in sales engineering, and yet they find themselves debugging and looking at logs. Now, I am going to do a shameless plug. If you're in that same spot and have many questions about the role of the SE and what you should be doing, make sure to check out the SE hotline, which is a new service that I'm working on. I will talk more about it at the end of the video. Now, if you want to support your customers well, and there is no customer success team, the salesperson and SE have to be more proactive than reactive. If an SE is reactive or a salesperson is reactive, that generally means that someone is upset at that point, or it could mean that someone is upset at that point. The first thing that SEs need to do in order to support their customers properly after the sale is to know them as well as they possibly can. Get insight about what they're doing and what they want to achieve as a company. So that at a minimum, if a new release comes up which you think can actually help the customer achieve their goals, you can reach out to the customer and say, hey, this is a new release, it has this feature which we talked about last time, and now it's here, you can use it, you can achieve your goals. Yay. Or when you can reach out when you hear some news that might be interesting to the customer about something in the industry or something about their company, whatever it is, you can reach out and talk to them. This is something that I've been doing for almost 10 years. I've had the same customers, and through that, I've managed to build a friendship with many of my customers. Now I'm at a point where I can simply message a customer and say, hey man, I miss you brother, or hey, I miss you sister.
I love you, man. I love you too, bud.
And we can just catch up. We can go grab lunch. We can talk over the phone. It's better that way, at least for me. I find it better. It's easier for me to support a friend than to support a dollar sign. Keep in mind that I did that before becoming a hybrid. As a sales engineer, I was doing that. Probably that's why I ended up being a hybrid. So again, the first thing you need to do is keep in touch. Second thing you could do is provide knowledge transfer. You know your product a lot better than your customers know your product. It's your job, it's not their job. But if they're using your product, they could benefit from your knowledge or the transfer of your knowledge to them to make sure that they're using the product properly, to help them avoid any pitfalls. For example, if there's a specific sequence of events that can cause something to crash, maybe you don't want to flat out say, hey, it'll cause it to crash, but tell them that there's a better way of doing things, do it this way, it'll make your life easier in the future. For example, in my company, we do a lot of lunch and learns to make sure we continue to be engaged and transfer that knowledge over to the customers. Dustin Allen talked about having office hours. Many other companies do webinars just to stay engaged and continue talking to their customers. See what works for you. There is no one size fits all. What would work for you? Figure that out and test it, implement it. Now we get to the reactive part. Sometimes we simply have to manage support. Customer runs into issue, you're the first point of contact, as I mentioned earlier, and now you have to manage the whole situation. And it could be, hey man, this hit the fan, the crap hit the fan right now, and I need this resolved in like 20 minutes. Or it could be, hey, I ran into this interesting situation, can you look at it in the future? And many SE's instincts, and definitely many salespeople's instincts, is to jump on and try to figure it out. The salesperson isn't going to jump on, but they definitely will ask the SE to jump on and figure it out. Something that my manager told me a while back, my former manager, he basically said, just because someone asks you to do something doesn't mean that you have to do something. It just means that you have to get it done somehow. So even if someone says, Ramsey, can you get this thing fixed? Even if they mean, Ramsey, get this thing fixed personally, it doesn't mean that I have to get it fixed personally. It means I can get people to get it fixed for me. And then give them credit, obviously. Or take the credit all by yourself. Like, it doesn't really matter. No one will know. But generally speaking, I always want to get support involved. If there's a small config issue, I can jump in and solve it. But if it turns out to be something big, at least support is aware and they're working on it in the background while I'm working on helping the customer out in the foreground. If there's something beyond my capability, doesn't mean that I just pass it on to support. It just means I have to get them involved and stay involved myself. Manage the process. The support process, communications with the customer, stay on top of things, because sometimes support don't answer customers the way the customer would understand. Support knows their product very well, and they think everyone talks the same way they do. They have their own acronyms, their own way of doing things, and they forget to translate to the customers, and that's where an SE could come in. Now, as I mentioned earlier, there are urgent situations where you need to get hands-on, get dirty, and try to work on something to get it fixed, or at least find a workaround for the customer. And if you do that, that is an investment in the relationship you might have with the customer. I talked earlier about being proactive and becoming friends with your customer. I became friends with my customers by not letting them down, by sometimes rolling up my sleeves and fixing things. It's just that you have to balance pre-sales and post-sales. If you're doing all post-sales, then maybe your account manager isn't finding enough opportunities or new opportunities for you to do pre-sales. But if you're sacrificing pre-sales to do post-sales, there are people better at doing post-sales than you because they do it all day, every day. You just have to manage the situation. You have to make sure that out of the 1,000 customers that open a ticket in the last hour, your customer takes priority somehow. That is the role of the SE in post-sales, I would say. The most important role of an SE in post-sales. So if this video was useful to you, make sure you hit the like button and share it with somebody else you think it will be useful to. And if you're looking for additional help, I am starting a service. I'm calling it the SE hotline or the pre-sales hotline. It's basically a hotline for sales engineers where they can join and get access to a coach who will help them, guide them throughout different situations based on their needs. If you want to know more, click the link below in the description or connect with me and I'm happy to answer your questions. So check it out and let me know. And with that, I'm done. Peace.